Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of Thoughts of a Rambling Mind. This episode is going to be about transgenders in the Olympics. Now, there's a gentleman by the name of Laurel Hubbard. Yeah, Laurel Hubbard out of New Zealand. In 2019, he was allowed to participate in the Olympics in the women's weightlifting competition. Laurel Hubbard is a gentleman born a man and identifies as a woman. He's been competing for many years as a man in weightlifting competition and had not won, but he competed as a woman in 2019 in the Olympics and won the gold medal as the strongest woman in the world. Okay. I have an issue with this, not because of any issue against transgender or homosexuality. And I have an issue with this not even because of the obvious issue of fairness of competition between males and females. You know, it's for obvious reasons men and women shouldn't compete against each other in most sports, right? And I don't understand how the Olympic Committee doesn't see that and doesn't address that. Um, it really boggles my mind that they allow that, but that is not the reason why I'm making this video, and that is not what has me upset about transgenders in the Olympics. You see, the Olympics is bigger than most people understand. The Olympics is not an entertainment sport for the purpose of people to watch and just look at the awe of amazing athletes. The Olympics is not something created for companies to boast about how big and how great their genetic pool and their country is of athletic prowess. The Olympics is not a peacemaking endeavor to bring cultures together in friendly sports like competition. The ultimate goal of the Olympics is to test the limits of human capability in males and females. We need to understand that all of our science of what a human can possibly do comes from the results found only in the Olympic Games and only by the greatest athletes in the world, generation after generation. And as these scores increase, we track the growth of the human structure and the human genome through our physical performance competitions. Okay? Everything else that comes along with competition is intended to push the athletes to the full extent of their abilities to work as hard as they can in practice and in training so that when it's time to perform, they can perform to the highest possible human capability, to the limits of what a human can do. For this reason, I, with a heavy heart, could not support Sha'Carri Richardson when she was found to be smoking marijuana. It's not because I think marijuana is a performance-enhancing drug. As a matter of fact, marijuana is a hindrance. She probably could have ran faster without it. It's not because the Olympics is such a pure place where people just are too good. The athletes are role models. No. The reason is because this is record, forever testament of all time throughout generations and legacies, past, present, and future, of what humans are capable of doing. And it needs to be completely isolated from enhancers, pollutants, politics, social changes, theoretical constructs. The Olympics needs to be a completely scientific, physical endeavor in order to determine what humans can do. Which leads me to Mr. Laurel Hubbard. And again, I mean no disrespect to Mr. Laurel Hubbard when I say Mr. or he or gentleman. I will address you by the name that you choose for me to address you as. But when I use adjectives, I will use the adjectives that are grammatically and scientifically correct for the person that you are. I will not be forced to change English. People ask me, what is it to me if someone wants to be called a she or a he? Well, what it is that I have a son, and I need for him to make sure that he knows the difference, right? So I'm going to make sure that I promote the difference. Also, I don't know if you can tell by the way I speak, but I'm an articulate person because I love language and I love words, and so I will always use correct ones if I know the correct one to use. And Mr. Hubble is the correct way to say this gentleman's name. Laurel. That's the name you chose. That's the name I'll call you. And that's that. So, my issue with transgenders in the Olympics, let's get right to it. Mr. Hubble set a record when he lifted those weights and got the gold medal. So from now on, the record shows that the human woman can lift whatever the weight is that he lifted. All girls will be told that they will be able to lift that weight. The history books will show that women were able to lift that weight. And that's false. All determinations that are made about women based on the highest amount of weight that they can lift has now been affected. What kind of job a woman can have with weight limit requirements, minimum weight limit requirements, like factory work. Factory work, some factories, the weight lift requirement for males is 100 pounds, for women is 50 to 75 pounds. Well, Mr. Hubble has now increased that. I hope you can keep up, ladies. A bigger ripple effect to something like this is that for the next Olympics, all the young ladies that are in colleges right now, all the young ladies with aspirations and goals of being weightlifters, you might want to go into a different sport. Because if I were a coach and I were to choose my team for America to represent, and I wanted to make sure that my team ended up on the podium with goalposts, I'd be looking for guys. I'd be looking for guys that identify as women. Because New Zealand has an unfair advantage in the world right now. New Zealand has a guy that identifies as a woman as their gold medalist. So they have an unfair advantage. And if I want to compete, I'm going to have to get a guy. So all the little girls in schools around the country, high schools around the country, elementary schools, dreaming about being a weightlifter. Now, I don't know how many there are, but I saw some women in these competitions that looked like they must have been doing this from a very young age. So, all the girls in high school that are thinking about being power lifters as far as the Olympics is concerned, you might want to consider a different sport. Because if I was a college coach and I had to pick who I wanted to draft and give a scholarship to for my college team, I'm going to have to go with a guy. Yeah. I'm going to need a guy that identifies as a woman. And I'm going to need a whole team with him. Why? Because I don't want to be disadvantaged. Why would I be disadvantaged? Because other teams are going to do the same thing. You know, I try to be understanding of all people and their struggle, because as a black man in America, Lord knows I have struggles that it seems like nobody else seems to understand. But this one I don't understand, and I'm asking all transgender people. I'm asking you guys to understand my view. You know, I've tried to understand your view, and I don't understand the view of the transgender, or what we call the transgender. I don't understand that view, but I accept, and I feel like it's not my right to determine what it is that somebody else does, what they think or what they say. I don't think that's my right. But science, nature, and human history is extremely important. It's important. It makes us all who we are. And at the point where we're starting to measure human women's capabilities by the capabilities of men that identify as women, we're starting to head into a slippery slope where it seems as if there's a force trying to replace women. The Olympics is the standard of what humans are capable of. It's the standard of what we identify humans as. If we allow men who identify as women to compete against natural born women, we are changing the standards for what a woman is. And we're doing it for the basis of capitalism, socialism, there's clips in the UFC of a UFC fighter, transgender UFC fighter, fighting a young lady, biological woman, versus a biological male that identifies as a woman. The ring is covered in this young lady's blood. This man is crouched over, bending this woman in the pretzels while pouring elbows down on her forehead. Fists. You can hear every kick. It makes your soul quake. The crowd rooting and cheering this shit on. This gentleman wins this fight, raises his hand in pride. The referee holds it up high, receives applause and payment. He walks out the ring. Now, I don't blame this gentleman. I think it's on Fox, something Fox. I don't remember his first name. I don't blame this gentleman Nor do I blame Laurel Hubbard for taking a lane that was provided for them. If I had a lane that suited me, that I didn't have to sacrifice my moral standings for in order to attain wealth, I would do it as well. So, what would you do? Or what should we do? What can we do? In a time when the replacement of the woman is happening right before our eyes. Those are my thoughts of the mind. Like, share, subscribe, and I'm out.